Well, hello and welcome to Zwift Live. This is our weekly community show. I'm Nathan Guerra, your host. And this week, it's the Zwift Racing League kickoff round one, race one. If you want to jump into the Zwift Racing League, you can join a team anytime. It's open all season for joining a team. Round one team registration itself has closed, but round two is now open for team registration. But if you're an individual who wants to get involved in the Zwift Racing League, from September 10th through October 15th, we're going to have 6 rounds every Tuesday in the largest weekly racing event in cycling in the world right here on Zwift with WTRL.racing/Zwift Racing League. Head on over there, find a team, and get involved. As an individual, you can still join. Well, joining me as usual, it's the host with the most. It's going to be Dave Toll, my co-host today. Dave, good to see you. I'm excited for another Zwift Racing League.
And this will be the perfect course for our teams to really test themselves as we get the new season underway. So yeah, cannot wait to get everybody out on course, Nathan.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see all the athletes out on course. It's going to be all about whether or not they've honed this skill, because it is definitely a skill, the team time trial. Now, let's hear a little bit, though, from the founder of WTRL and one of the men who makes all of the ZRL happen, Martin Carew, a little about how all this got going. So, pro rugby player gets into cycling, starts Zwifting, and then somehow becomes one of the leaders behind the largest weekly cycling event in the world. How does that transition take place?
I mean, I've always had an interest in computer games. I've been a PlayStation user for many, many years, and going back into the old Segas and Nintendos, all of that kind of thing. So the crossover with sport and video gaming kind of suits me quite well. And developing sports, developing games, developing competition, that collection and that bucket of interests is what has spawned WTRL to become what it's become.
The team functionality that exists at WTRL kind of helped form the idea of teams in general across the entirety of the virtual cycling landscape, I would think, that without the TTT, the reality of teams might not be even close to as strong.
WTRL originally came from setting up some Saturday races here and there, usually in collaboration with another club. And then from there, we were particularly keen to get more team racing involved and more meaningful team racing. So rather than just 5, 6, 7, 8, however many people just show up to a race and you all wear the same jersey from the same club, this was to make the racing a bit more meaningful, which is where the team time trial was developed. And back in 2019, I think, when we initially launched the team time trial with the 7 initial teams that took part. Having done years and years of sport, it is far more fun, if you can call it fun, to suffer as a group of people than it is to sit on a bike or sit in any sport suffering on your own. If you've got teammates there to motivate you or to tease you or to help you or to support you, to coach you, you realize a bit more of your potential, you have a bit more fun doing it, and the experiences that you have are generally a lot stronger. And that's been one of the really rewarding things of WTRL, is to hear the stories coming in from people in the TTT who maybe they've jumped on Zwift, they really want to get fit or want to improve at cycling or whatever the reasons are. They get hooked up into a team, and then the stories that come back is, it's really helped me get through my cancer treatment, or it's helped me through periods of loneliness, or it's really helped me with motivation to want to race or to work for my team, not just for me. So it's been a really, really heartwarming experience. Not without its challenges, but it's been an awesome experience so far.
Great to hear from Martin. We'll hear more from Martin later on in the program, but let's take a quick look at the course. It is race one of the ZRL. It's a team time trial. Douce France, 1 lap, 24.8 kilometers, 136.6 meters of climbing. Points of interest out here today are going to be those first little intestines. It's kind of windy in there. It can be difficult to hold on to a wheel and find the right wheel as it twists and turns as you try and hold that straight line in team time trial formation. formation. The Aqueduct climb, a lot of speed over there, and continuance over the top is going to be all about hitting the flat sections as you hit that France village in the cobblestones and then into all of the sunflowers. Nothing but flat on the back end, Dave.
Yeah, Nathan, I love this course. It really is pure to the discipline of team time trialing, but it throws just enough at you along the way to keep things relatively spicy. I mean, in a good team time trial race, it doesn't need to get that spicy because the intensity of just trying to moderate your effort, work within that team dynamic, this really is what Zwifting is all about when you talk about racing. So you're not going to win the season here. You're probably not going to lose the season either, but you're going to get yourself off on one trajectory or another. That's for sure. Team vibe is critical. And Nathan, if there's, you can just jump right into Zwift Racing and find success right away. But with team time trialing, you really do need to do that work. And that probably happens with WTRL on Thursdays, where the learning curve is so steep. I mean, what is it, Nathan? 3 races together as a team before you really start to sync up?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be, 3 races about. The first race, you're just kind of trying to figure out how things play out. But let's head down to the pens, actually. I want to give everybody an idea of exactly what it looks like when you're getting a start going. Everybody hangs out in these pens and waits for their turn to go. Lined up, as you can see, the teams all in their team kits, loving to see exactly how this plays out. You wait for your section so you're not going to interfere with each other. You don't start as a main group. Some people maybe unfamiliar with how this works, Dave. And this has been quite the progression to get to this point, hasn't it?
It really has. I mean, this is so incredibly organized. And this really, the man that you were just interviewing, Martin, has built this from scratch. And it's incredible. So this really gives you a feel. Watch that clock. You can see the countdown, 25K of racing as we're about to head out on course here. All right, andiamo, guys. And to watch how quickly, Nathan, that their plan goes into play is that's 5 seconds and they've already sorted out their line. Good job here.
Well done by Deepak here. As you can see, definitely a team to be watching out for out here today. Fabian Devola that we're looking at, he's a very familiar rider to us. 6, did they show up with the maximum of 6? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a total of 6 riders that can show up on the day. And as you can see, immediately getting into that formation, Dave.
Yeah, Nathan, I'm trying to figure out who the 6th was. And I think I just saw the name pop. So, here we go. So it's going to be the Austrian Pettinger, Daniel Pettinger, David Pacheco from Portugal, the 2 Belgians, Sebastian Libon, and then we mentioned Fabian Devola. I would say that is one of the more recognizable names that we're going to have out here racing today. And this team very well setting a benchmark out here. We're going to have splits, as you can see, coming up at 6, 12, and 18K into the race. That should tell us quite a bit. This is a good look at all of the teams that we've got some very familiar squads. It really looks like a who's who of team time trialing out here. So start with 6. Obviously, that 4th rider left is going to be critical when you look at where you stop the clock. Not all 6 riders need to get to the finish to get a time. So you'll see the best teams, Nathan, might even have role players out here today, riders that aren't even planning on making it to the finish. But this is not ideal. Well, you've talked about the intestines, Nathan. Yep.
Yeah, up front, we talked about the intestines being a difficult one. And as you can see, right from the get-go here, our Mins off the front just a little bit here. And that's, the instigation to the rest of the team to go faster is one thing that people could be thinking. But, Dave, the reality is it's not going to help a lot when they have to burn matches in order to catch back up with those team members.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually bad on both ends right now. As you can see, they're welding this back together on the front, but still the tail is. So this is exactly what I'm talking about, Nathan. To be fair, I'm going to guess that these guys haven't raced team time trials all that much. We'll have to dig in a little bit and find out. But this is exactly what you get when you're learning on the fly. They're right now kind of in the air building the plane at the same time.
Yeah, kind of all over the shop here, as you can see. 1, 2, 3 riders off the front. I think, there can be one of those situations where there's just a little bit, you're excited to get the racing going. You're excited for the
Oh.
ZRL. We're going to win this time around. And Mutant here, I think that's what's going on with them, is they're extremely excited, most likely, and it's, looks like it's a tough one here, though,
Boy.
to keep everything together. 40 meters off the back already from some of the riders. They need 4 to finish, Dave, and they're down to 3 at the front.
And Nathan, this is the perfect time to talk about the role of the director sportif, right? That is critical. Much like in rowing where you have the coxswain, well, here you really need somebody who's telling the riders on the front, you got to back off a little bit, let these two rejoin. Even if you get that group of 4 together, it is way, way too early to just push the dump button on 2 riders out here. So, I hate to focus in, Nathan, on a tough start like this, but I do think that this really helps give a good example of how challenging the team time trial is. On paper, it sounds much easier. Okay, we start with 6. The time taken off of the 4th rider. Everybody should just stay together and work. But as you said, the excitement in Nathan, how many times have we had this discussion through the years about the different mindset of racers where someone, I think it's been fairly well documented. You yourself, you like to go out hard, ride aggressively. And if you have riders who are maybe struggling at the back, it's been traditionally a challenge to figure out how to get the most out of them without completely cracking them.
Yeah, 100%. As you can see here now, back in, we're going to see if we can move back just a little bit. We were with Deepak just a little bit ago, and all together here with Deepak, but a little ways behind them, BZRE 3 looking good, solid together here. See if we can get a top view. This always gives a good view of how riders are trying to hold that formation. Look at this in testing. We said that this was a point of interest, and see how difficult it is to make sure your avatar is timing everything correctly. And the power in the pedals becomes, if you've ever played any console games with a controller, it becomes the controller with the little bits of movements with the power in the pedals to just aim that avatar exactly where it needs in formation without overstepping the avatar in front of you, without going behind, though, too much where you lose the wheel. And when you're on the front, well, set it to where you're not dropping your team and it all stays conducive behind so nobody is falling off pace.
Right, and that is a fine lot. This team is doing a fantastic job here, though, Nathan. As a matter of fact, we haven't seen anybody quite this dialed so far today, albeit we've only looked at about 10 minutes of racing, but this might not be perfect, but it is definitely the closest that we've seen. They are flat out pinning it right now, so let's watch out. So BZRE3, we've got a tremendous number of Belgians jumping in with this time zone here. Most well-represented nation outside of Sweden, I would say. But this is one of the pure Belgian squads, and they've got their act together out here. We're going to be looking for that 6K split to be coming up, the first part of the course out here. Again, we're in France, the world that was built back for the Tour de France, actually. It's so cool that this time trial course, the team time trial course that we're racing on has become a cornerstone of the racing. So looking forward to seeing what we've got. That 6K split's going to tell us a lot about what we're going to see out here today. So that'll be a great indicator. Going out hot, Nathan, I think that's probably the technique that most of the top teams will be using today, to tell you the truth. Let the chips fall where they may in that last. It's flat in the finale, but here is where you might be able to squeak out a quarter second and half a second just by being like BZR right now, very, very dialed in with your technique.
Yeah, it looks like, it's a fast course, right? Like a really, really fast course. And it's short. It's not like it's going to be an hour long or anything. Essentially, you've got a 30 to 40 minute full gas effort for these A riders. So I think they can afford to, use a little extra gas here. We do see some of those fire socks throwing down. You're going to see a lot of over threshold for those that do have those fire socks on, 120%. And you know what that rider was just doing that we were just looking at? That rider on the back is doing the sink and sprint method. You go to 0 watts per kilogram or around there, go backwards as quickly as you possibly can, and then jump right back on. So you're not interfering with the line at all to make sure that the riders that can all hang out exactly where they need to.
Yeah, and is that the technique you recommend, Nathan?
That's
the
what
other
I
would
use.
be
That's
the
what I
feather and
use.
float. Right.
I'll be racing tonight, and I'll 100% because I know what it's like to be on the other end of that. I know exactly what it's like to be on the other end of that, where you are trying to hold a wheel in front of you and someone starts floating backwards into the line and you have to push past them while you're trying to rest, you use all of your effort to fight for a wheel that's supposed to be used on the front of the pack. Totally not what we want. That's why the sink and sprint's not about you. The sink and sprint is about your team. It's about making sure your team is not wasting energy because you're in the way, actually.
Yeah, it's sort of, well, it's definitely a binary go, no-go type of move off of the front. And you can see that's what the top teams do out here, no doubt about it. So, all right. As we watch a team that really does have things dialed in right now, there's the Fire Sox that Nathan. What triggers that again, Nathan? The Fire Sox.
120%, I believe it is. 120% is what we're looking at for that, actually.
Boy, can you imagine? I mean, if you have exactly what we're seeing from BZR, where, I mean, that's the first time that we've seen even a micro gap opening up here in the last couple of minutes. And if you can hit Fire Sox every time you have a new rider putting their nose in the wind, and you were right on with that 30-second, I mean, it's like hit the front, hit the gas, not so hard that you blow the team apart, but hard enough. They're just goosing a little more speed out of this team. This is going to be, I mean, we'll have to watch other teams out here, but Nathan, this is a command performance that we're looking at here in the early going. 25K to go, but this tells you a lot about, they brought their A game today. They're racing to win and take top points here in race one, first race of the season here. A lot of excitement around the globe to get the ZRL kicked off. Nathan, I love that. Waking up here in the United States, the number of riders that are putting up their first race posts of this season. And here are these splits, and it is really, really close. I mean, the fact that this isn't the fastest time that we're looking at, D-Pack Elite with a 7:31 at 6K, 9 seconds quicker than BZR here. That tells you that this is going to be an absolute Donnybrook out here today in France. That's Mutant with a 7:44, only 4 seconds off of that fastest time. What do you think, Nathan, at 6K? Do we even see 30 seconds from tip to tail out here? Talking about, I mean, will we have a team go over 8 minutes?
I mean,
6K?
These are really high level teams here that we're looking at. Mutant versus, I mean, these first three teams, even that we're looking at, are some of the top in the world, but we still have No Pens, R3R Men to come through. We've got Sisu, which is a top level. BL13 is in here, and they've got their top game squad in here as well. So this is a super, super competitive. It's a great point, actually, Dave. I think we'll see somewhere between 30 to 45 seconds on the splits.
And it's interesting, too, remembering that D-Pack Elite with that 7:31, that might not be the fastest time that we've got at this 6K split, but also, that technique of going out just blistering pace, that can burn you in the end as well, especially when you have teams with so much depth out here. Not saying that's the case at all, as I certainly like the technique, and that's what we're witnessing here. More splits will be coming in. It's going to be really great to get this data out here in today's team time trial. Teams absolutely will love being able to really figure out what they need to do in the finale today, because that's what it's going to come down to. I'm anticipating less than 5 seconds between our winning team and second today. It'll be that close.
Yeah, and we can see here Mutants really gotten things together. I think they chilled out quite a bit here now. Before, things were looking pretty rough, weren't they? And now at this point, it looks like all back together. They didn't actually lose anyone through that mayhem, which I'm a little bit surprised at, actually, Dave. The reality of how much, being only quarter way in, getting the regroup is definitely important, and then they can just kind of throw down, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really well put. I think that applies to a lot of racing on Zwift, is going out hard, and you really do get that first indicator of whether you've got it or not here today. This is a tough spot to be in here. We'll have to watch the rotation as well. You just witnessed a stellar performance being put together by the BZR team, and this is a little dicier back here, Nathan, when you look at it.
Yeah, it looks like, looking a little bit behind this rider here, we'll see if we can get a better view of how Mins is doing. And it looks like pretty solid, pretty steady here from Mins as he continues on. Snail there at the back for the actually riding for VCRT. It says in his name, but definitely a mutant rider. I think he's separating himself with that little jersey change up though to say that he's a guest rider. It looks like to me.
So it's interesting, Nathan. We were just on a little bit of a kicker there, and this is where you want. When you talk about it's not oof, and that's going to be it. Unfortunately, you can see how hard this is. But when you
You
can
were
no
right.
longer
How did
hold
you pick that up? Good call
Yeah.
there, Dave. You totally saw that coming.
Yeah, I mean, and now this is tough because as they hit the Aqueduct KOM, it's going to be 4 for them, and this is sub-ideal. But at this point now, you soldier on with what you've got. So that's what the situation is going to be here for TNT. It looks like as they come up and over the Aqueduct KOM. This feature, we've talked a lot about the history of aqueducts, but right now for this team, this is not a joyous moment as they have lost a couple of riders on the Aqueduct KOM climb. They probably won't be the only team to have this happen to them out here today, but now it's TCB taking care of business for these 4 here. Going to be watching now for our next the next time we get a look at these splits too. Will 7:31 hold up as the fastest time at checkpoint 1? My guess is no, to tell you the truth, Nathan, when you look at the quality of riders that we've got in this race.
Yeah, it looks like we've got some data coming through here for the riders nearby. You can actually throw down those ride-ons. Always great to see people getting those on the right-hand side of the screen. As you can start seeing some of the wattages they're throwing down. Cough here, as we take a look at him, 415 watts, 6.1 watts per kilogram right now, 159 beats per minute coming from him. Great to see, but only 4 riders left. The suffering on the back here, that's the big question that we have over and over again here with Mins. As we were seeing, where is he at? Rich Mins here. Look at the difference though, Dave, on the downhill, how much you can actually reserve. Rich Mins, 2.8 watts per kilogram, while Cough on the front is throwing down 6 watts per kilogram. Everyone who's wondering about how to TTT, this is it right here. You reserve the energy everywhere you possibly can.
No, great catch there, Nathan. So that, when you look at, that's Chris Kaufman who's taken that monster pull. But if you do have a rider that's a little bit on the ropes, what a great time to let them recharge their battery just a little bit there. Definitely don't take a pull. Just stay in the wheels here and let's see if you can come good. It's 25K of racing, and there's definitely going to be, every rider's going to have that moment where they feel like they're just at their limit. As this is TNT really showing us over the last couple of K how, they're starting to organize as we roll through the French Village here. Looks like a big carnival, big party going on for ZRL kicking off the season. I get the excitement.
100%. Absolutely love it that they've got the party going on. This section actually is interesting because the amount of speed that you can pull through in this section, Dave, it definitely can change things up a little bit about how, and you can see, look at the separation that's happening because the speed slows down just a little bit. You got to push that little bit extra to hold the wheels. Look at everybody's watts per kilogram. Look at how they're having to press through as Burns here makes his way to the front.
And that's where an experienced team leader, Nathan, can really make a difference by understanding that. Because what you don't want to do is fight against your own team, right? If you're closing down gaps, there's 2 sides to every story, right? And that gap opened up for a reason. And what we need to do is not let that happen again. It really comes down to the micro gains that you're looking for out here. But again, you don't want to be fighting against your own team. Like right now, this rider trying to rejoin on the back. And this becomes an interesting question with the time taken off of the 4th rider here. And Nathan, you've dealt with this dozens of times, right? That question of, do we wait or do we push on? Is the value of keeping that rider here going to pay off later in the race? And also there's the risk reward where if something happens to a rider here in the back half of the course, if you've only got 4, you have no wiggle room. By waiting up and maybe giving up a half second, but keeping that safety of that 5th rider in the group, is it worth it, Nathan? So situational, isn't it? You'd need about 10 more data points before you could make that call. But the problem is you're not necessarily going to get them out here. Animal instinct kicks in WTRL. I mean, how many times have you been there? Critical decisions while you're completely at your limit, heart rate at 177, and someone's asking you, do we go or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, with this, looking at the press here, do we go or not? It looks like Kickoff here is now letting us know exactly whether or not he's going to be going 5.6, 448 watts, giving you an idea of exactly what they're throwing down in this A level out here on Zwift. Now, ready to the front, though, you can see the change up there coming from Kenny now, pressing forward, but only 383. And that really gives you an idea of the differences between the riders, doesn't it? I mean, Kickoff, they're having to throw down up into almost 500 watts. Well, Stefan there from Ireland, a little bit different situation, but 397, it's not always about the raw wattage, is it, Dave?
No, absolutely not. The finesse is such a huge part of this. So Stephen Kenny, team captain there. Christopher Kaufman is the British rider along with Rich Minns on this team. As I mentioned, the Irishman, Stephen Kenny, and then the Suffolk Snail. I love that name, but I think we lost the Suffolk Snail out of this formation right now.
Well, Dave, here's the current situation. A 7:31 is what we're looking at. Let's see if we can get some of the fastest times so far out here. It was actually Zedson. Watch out for the underpants. Loving the name there coming from these guys. They came through with a 7:26, Dave. It looks like at that 6 kilometer marker. So that's the fastest that we've got out there so far. Some of the front runners here taking a little bit easier. The big question, was it too much? Because look at the 12K from Deepak, sacrifice that 5 seconds to gain a few later on, I think is a better TTT, usually dynamic play that you want to make out there.
Yeah, risk reward is what we talk about so much, Nathan, in cycling. But this is more risk management. I think when you've got team time trialing, there was a quicker time than that 7:31. Look at Zed Sunderpants, Nathan, 7:26 at that 6K check. So we'll be watching for them at 12K. They might even be the next team through. They started right in the middle of this Donnybrook, that's for sure. So fastest time remains with Deepak Elite, but it'll be interesting. Can they slide in 14:45, Nathan? Can they get in quicker than that? Really at the midpoint of the course here. This is the familiar kit of Zed Sun that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's good to see them having a good ride out here so far, it looks like to me. Taking a look at Pritchard now, 402 watts, as he sits in at 402 watts, Dave. This is a strong team. They're not even halfway through right now, but they're on the Aqueduct climb. They're starting that climb now a little bit, so I think that has a little bit of something to do with it, it seems to me, as it's going to be still 6 riders for Zedson as they start up the Aqueduct. The fastest time through at the 6 kilometer marker, but what will they have at this next 12K? That's going to be the big question. It's going to be John here at 6.3 watts per kilogram up on the top of the Aqueduct. And this is a point of interest for sure because it's speed over the top of this. You can climb it fast, but the question is, will you carry that fast over the other side? Because you can get up to speeds of 60 plus kilometers per hour on the other side of this climb.
John Bailey was the rider, Nathan, who just finished up that monster pull. Very well put. It's the continuation, right? This race is going to be won right here, right now, to tell you the truth. If they can, the continuance, a word I learned from you and I love, Nathan, they are still 6 solid. These are the gladiators of team time trialing that we're looking at right now. And I tell you what, that was a tremendous indicator that this is the team to beat. Zed Sun is back, and they are in full effect. This is a team time trial clinic that we're looking at as they come down the backside of the Aqueduct KOM. So, Nathan, John Bailey, this is one impressive ride. Roy Rostias, Steve James, Stuart Leilou. So this team has a couple Welsh riders, a few Brits as well, and then the Dutch rider Dan Gosthuis. So very, very impressive job. They very well could take a gold medal back from France to their respective home countries here. That's one of the things I love about virtual racing. But this crew, Nathan, it might be virtual racing from around the globe, but they know each other well. This is a well-drilled team time trial effort that we're looking at from Zed Sun. They had the fastest time at the first check by 5 seconds, if I remember correctly. Nathan, I'm going to say that they're going to blow this out of the water. A 14:40. I think they go sub that with what we're looking at check twos. We'll see if I'm right or not. That
we'll
12K
see. That's a big
check.
That's
Are you looking at it?
Oh man,
Nathan
we'll
always has
give me a second here. I'll see if I can find it for you here, because that would be insanely fast. Real quick, just highlighting this poll. They were coming through.
Look at the crowd.
It's come down a little bit though. They're not pulling 6 through the back end here, really. Well, maybe Siri is the one who we need to take a look at, because Siri is like absolutely flying here, actually. We'll see if we can get in with him, because I have a feeling he's coming through with crazy wattage. Roy, now 7 watts per kilogram from Zed Sun. Okay, they're definitely pulling harder than I thought they would through this section here, as Taft just tries to hang on through the cobbles. They're catching riders up ahead here. Zed Sun with quite the ride.
I love seeing that watch the femmes on the trust there. They have really spruced up France, that's for sure. Okay, let's see here. 14:45 for Zed Underpants.
Right.
Zed Sun Underpants. I'm not saying that very well. Zed Sunderpants. That's how they gobsmacked I am. 14:45 fastest time at that split. It's 3 seconds quicker than Deepak Elite. And then everybody is just bunched right in there, Nathan, between 15:04, 15:05. So only 1 second separating the third quickest time. And this will update. Not everybody is already through at 12K. And that shows you as they are all over France. We got teams left, right, and center. 3 teams have already gone past 18K. Everybody's past 6K, but we still are waiting for No Pins and Velociraptors there to put their 12K check up on the board. This is going to be back with TNT.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're catching the back end of the race. They already passed all the checks so far. Let's take a quick look at what those checks were. Back in with Tom Burns. He's taking another pull in the front. They're down to 4 riders, Dave. This is the tough part, right? Every time we've come here, we've seen pretty much almost the same rider on the front. And so what ends up happening is you end up in a solo TT or a 1-2 TT while others are just hanging on. And I think this has a lot to do with what we saw early on in the race from these riders. There was so much separation in the intestines. Everyone ended up blowing up. And now you just have riders who have already used so many matches just to hang on. And you've got mayhem here, Dave. Now they're having a good time still. It's not like it's a bad time, but the level that, Mutant rides at, I think that they're going to be a little disappointed with their ride today.
I would agree. I mean, one thing's for sure, they're not going to be disappointed with their effort, but I do think that the precision is what's lacking. I mean, this is brute force-wise a tremendous ride.
Seriously, that's a good call on the brute force, Dave.
Yeah.
Really, seriously.
Yeah. And so this is what almost I'm thinking a boxing analogy, right? But once they work their craft a little bit, they're going to be really tough to beat out here. And it's funny, Nathan, you see them in just pandemonium, and then they settle right back into what looks like a nice rhythm here. So that's just the problem is you need to keep this TNT going the whole time.
Looks like Steven's actually the one that's making his way to the front. Kenny, they're taking really short pulls, actually, so it's almost difficult to get the right rider on the highlight here, as you can see, but up into 400, 500 watts there for just a moment. And, Dave, that's what starts happening at the back end, isn't it? You start taking these shorter pulls, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30, because that's really all you've got left in the tank is a little kick, hold on, and then right to the back again.
And Nathan, this is really where you can highlight who the strongest or stronger riders are on your team are. Now is where you start taking double pulls if you are that rider, right? And but you make a really, really good point. And that's one thing that you'll definitely hear at the highest level is if you can't keep the speed up, get off the front. The worst thing you can do is bog us down.
Yeah, that's true. And as you can see here, Dave, I mean, the backing off of the speed from these riders at this point. Look at the heart rates. They're really trying to control them, I think, is what's happening here, because, I just get the sense that everyone's just completely on their limit. If you get a look at, and the only one who's getting recovery here, I think off is going to be the next one to come through. And I love how we got the data here to kind of get an idea of like where the rhythm is coming through and how they're pulling through with each athlete. It gives you a whole new insight here with these data points to see when people are actually working and what they have to hold consistently just to be a part of the conversation.
Well, Nathan, as we make our way into this highly anticipated ZRL season, I'm going to be watching out for Christopher Kaufman in a solo breakaway. This guy's an absolute monster in this format. It's a little bit harder to show that, but he has been tremendous on throughout the day. So look how perfect they are right now as they're going to be ready to bring this one on home into the back end of the course. Very, very close. 3 seconds separating our top 2 teams out here, Nathan. That's exactly what we anticipated. This is going to be one of the most competitive, the Open EMEA, that's Europe, Middle East, and Africa West, Southern Division 1, with tens of thousands of riders. You see how amazingly intricate it becomes trying to organize this league. Shout out to you, Martin, that's for sure. Waiting for this Zed Sunderpants time to come in, 21:54, the quickest time. It's been Deepak Elite with either the best or the second fastest time at all of our checks. This is the third and final check before we go into our finale. And at 18K, well,
1.5K to go here. They're finishing right here. Coming in for the Mutant team. 22:32 they came in with, way behind on that Deepak Elite. Deepak Elite, they've got 1.5. They're actually catching, I think. Looking behind, I bet you we might be able to see them off in the distance perhaps here, as Deepak are pretty close to where we're at with this Mutant team. But Mutant about to finish up, it looks like here. Solid result, I think. I don't know. I think they're going to fall down the leaderboard as these other teams come through that 18K, though, don't you, Dave?
Yeah, again, it's such a stacked field that unless you have a fantastic ride, you really can't anticipate finding yourself in the top 5 with so many quality squads out here. But they're ready to bring this one on home. Scott and Squirrel.
Right-hand turn through the Watch the Femmes, and then we'll make our way back to Deepak to see how things are playing out for them. Nice job to Mutant, finishing up. Oh, see, they were right there. They were right there. I had a feeling that Deepak were right on their tail. And there it is, the finish there for Deepak. We'll get their times in just a moment. We're going to have a rapid succession now, also within the last kilometer here now at this point. And this is going to be the BZR team coming in. Let's take a quick look at what's going on with them. Zetson Sunderpants, green across the board. Absolutely insane. But Belgian Zwift Rider Eagles 3, that's who we're currently looking at, who has a 22:19 right now.
Well, only 2 seconds, so it just got even closer there from 12 to 18K. This could go down inside of 1 second here at the finish line. It's going to be absolutely incredible. These teams have left it all out on course. These really are the gladiators of the team time trial. And some of these teams, I mean, if you're coming in with 5 at this point, that's a real luxury. Having 5 here now, Nathan, should get you an extra quarter, half second over any team with 4, as you can sacrifice a rider, just bury it, put that accelerator down on the floorboard here. This is it right here, right now. The effort is almost over. This is where races are won and lost.
100%. This really is you can lose the race if you do not put every last inch that you've got into. This has to be everything to the line at this point. Seriously, the power, full gas, 6, 7, 8, sprinting over the top. You're screaming at each other in Discord to try and make it happen. And now to the line, BZR Eagles. They're going to take, it looks like, a pretty solid top 5, I have a feeling. Nilsson here behind. This is going to be OUT, the Swedish team, with Kinberg toward the front, it looks like, of this crew. So solid effort here coming in from them. Let's take a quick look at what their splits are, as it looks like it is going to be Outboar coming in at the last check mark. They were in 7th place at a 22:56 still. Zed Sunderpants there coming on through. Now the finish time they're not finished yet. So still the fastest time, as you can see in the green there, all the way through. Zed Sun holding down. Deepak do sit currently in first with Mutant in second.
The average speed for almost every team here is going to be faster than Eddie Merckx or Francesco Moser's hour records back. I guess that's a few years ago, but it certainly is impressive to see all these teams well over 50 kilometers per hour on their average speed. It's this course is no gimme here in France. Douce France, 25K done and dusted. We're going to bring this on home. 29:23, the fastest time, but we're going to see inside of 29:30, no doubt, for the win here.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've got 29-23 out there. Will they go even sub 29?
That's sub 29, right?
That, man. Zed's son, where are they at? They've got to be pretty close here. BL13 are also out here. Good to see that the Swedish team, though, outbore. Nice by them. ABR now in with them. That's going to be the ABR cycle team. They've got a solid 23-13 as they're finishing up out on course. Good for them to show up. And I like their kit there, the Bicycling Magazine kit. As not super familiar with this team. I think they're jumping into the deep end a little bit, this team. As S. Van Wickern is going to be the rider that we're jumping in with.
Good for them. I mean, they certainly found the highest level of competition in ZRL. And you don't just fall off the couch and get into this level of racing either. As you can tell by these guys, a very well-organized effort out here. But Nathan, I have to admit, I'm not familiar with ABR cycling team as well. Ben Mackinson, Fabian Joe Sen is the American on the squad, Fabian German, and then from the United Kingdom is Ben Mackinson. Carl Norris, VTTA. I'm going to have to dig in and figure out what that is all about. And then you mentioned Sam Whitaker as well, with Sebastian Van Wickern making up that ABR team. So we'll look forward to learning more about these guys in this ZRL season. There's always going to be that situation, Nathan. Teams that you have to meet. We've got 6 weeks of racing to look forward to if you include this week, which is already proved to be a barn burner out here. This is going to be an incredible season for these guys. Nathan, one thing you love to see is parity. If you have one team racing 2 minutes faster than everyone else here, it's not going to be much fun this season. You're going to see utter domination.
100%. Hey, let's real quickly, as these teams are starting in the back end of the racing here, let's hear a little bit from Martin actually about how things are run and his future outlooks on the Zwift Racing League. You and Zwift have this conversation about a Zwift Racing League with team racing, and it's going to launch and flip the switch, and I hope it goes well. How did that first season kick off, right? Like, was there a little bit of nerves of like, is anyone going to show up?
So we were really excited to see how far it could go. I think in that team, that first season that we did, I think we had something like, I think it was like 1,000 teams or something like that, 800 to 1,000 teams. And it's just grown and grown and grown and grown to the point last year we were seeing 2,400 teams. I think in total it was something like 35,000 unique races that took part across the last 3 rounds, the last season.
How do you strategize to keep things competitive when people are racing against each other?
Well, obviously the big thing is forming up the leagues and the divisions to start with. We use a number of different metrics to be able to rank a team, so we can pretty much work out how we think each team's going to do, how they might do against each other, and this is all software driven now. It started off as a manual process, so we used to literally sit there with hundreds of spreadsheets and work it all out. So we try to get the teams into competitive divisions so that the races remain pretty competitive, and it might not be that everyone's fighting for the top spot. And that's the great thing with leagues, is you're generally setting a target somewhere. So yeah, team A wants to beat the team that's going to be 2 or 3 positions above them. That's their target. So they'll be building strategy on that. So you get lots of little battles going on. But then we also mix it up because it's sport and sport, different formats, different skills, different strategies. Then allow different team members to be able to shine as well. You can have your team time trial specialists. You have your points races, your sprint specialists, your climbing specialists, and then obviously we had the route design competition. So this allows Zwifters to assemble together their roads to form what would become the ZRL route, and everybody has voted for their favourite. It turned out to be Breakfast Crits and Grits, which will be race 6, brand new course specifically designed by a community member for the Zwift Racing League Race 6 scratch race. So there's lots of elements that we use to try and keep everything as competitive as possible.
What is the most exciting thing to you about the future of the Zwift Racing League?
The most exciting thing is bringing Zwift Racing League to more people, to more Zwifters, to see racing, not just in Zwift Racing League, but as a whole across multiple organizers to grow across Zwift.
Martin, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time here on Zwift Live.
Thanks, Nathan. It's been great talking.
Well, great to hear from Martin Dave, the man behind what created the team time trial actually out on Zwift, and one of the favorite ways in order to get people interacting. And it's really developed, right? Started with TTT, then it was like, okay, what other ways can we do team dynamic competitions? Points racing starts coming in there. I mean, it really was this awesome development we've seen over the last 5 years or so.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things I love was the getting the participation of the riders to help design their own route as well. So, but hey, Nathan, here we go. These riders right now will be bleeding through their eyeballs, won't they? 4 together, but a solid formation as they're ready to bring this one home. This is no pins that we're looking at. One of our last teams. This might be the last team out on course, actually.
I think it is our last team out on course, actually. So we'll see how they end up. Well, Velos might be a little ways behind. We might be able to jump in with Velos, actually, and see how they finish up on the day. But they're going to be throwing down this last little bit here to try and get the best time they possibly can. Before they finish up, let's take a quick look how things stand for them. No Pins R3R came through.
There it is.
In 9, they were sitting currently 22-27 at that 18 kilometer split. So they're going to have to really press it here at this moment.
Nathan, I want to go back, though. Look at BCR, the Eagles 3. They did fade going out so hard. They had the fastest time at 6K, and they'll fall to 4th there. So just goes to show you that there is a price to be paid for every effort.
That's a good point. There definitely is. Every single effort matters. I used to go out so screaming hard in the Zwift Racing League or the TTTs, and that has changed up a little bit. We still get up to speed real quickly, but it's not a full gas sprint right from the get-go. I think you can temper it a little bit because you need that for later on.
Yeah, and the last thing you want is to already be in, oxygen debt or lactic debt is you're just 1 minute into the race and having to start talking about recovering. So these two teams that are left, No Pins, R3R, and Velociraptors. And
right into the finish
time
just about here. This is coming in pretty quickly here for the Velociraptors.
So it's not so much about the one rider off of the front because that's actually going to be another team. That's a Sisu rider that had done their work earlier. So they're all together here. A few hundred meters left.
Yeah,
loving the vibe.
Welsh AK. And it's going to be Michael Paxton, Josh Medina, and a few others here across the line. How many do they have left here for Velos? It looks like they're going to finish with 4. We've seen a lot of riders actually finish with 4. So I think that's been the tactic out here today so far, hasn't it? To just burn a couple of riders up front, do everything they possibly can, let them fall off. And it's one tactic that can work to have an okay time.
Yeah, there's that old saying about if you want to go fast, go with few. If you want to go far, go with many. And I think 4 is the number. Look at Scotty the squirrel going bananas over there. So they're establishing their time. So, but yeah, Nathan, you're right. I mean, theoretically, finishing with 4, I would want to know when your 5th rider exited stage right. Like, perfect race is probably they bury themselves and take you down to 500 meters to go or so. So, but if you're finishing with 4, it's either a really good sign or a really bad sign, I guess, depending on what your team's mindset was.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fast. I mean, that was quick. These are crazy times. We had sub 30 minutes, Dave, for
we touched on 29. Even
yeah,
29,
20-30. We'll see what some of the finals here are. 29-16 there for said Sunderpants there. There was some mayhem up front that we saw from Mutant. I think a lot of riders here that are looking at this and wondering, okay, how do we attack this course? I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of looks at that intestines and wondering, okay, how do we make sure we stay together, keep it consistent then through the flat sections, and then Aqueduct, a lot of speed, and then just hold on to the finish line with full gas TTT through the back end. I know a lot of people jump into this community ZRL broadcast specifically just to know, how do I take this on? How do I learn? And that's another thing, Dave, I think, is that you can jump in and do TTTs every week, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. On Thursdays with WTRL, there's a saying, Nathan, that repetition is the mother of learning, right? And that is really true with team time trialing. As we were talking about at the beginning of the broadcast, about the third time that you race together as a team is when it really starts to click. But I mean, I'd also say maybe for the first 5K out here, a little bit less might be a little bit more in the end for you when you look at your efforts out there. Is establishing your rhythm is critical in a team time trial, right? Just like in a band, everything goes back to the drummer or the bass player, but someone has to control that rhythm. And that's the job of the team captain or the director sportif to do that. Once you've established the rhythm, then you can start to play around with the tempo.
Yeah, and it really, team time trialing really is all about a solid rhythm, knowing exactly the speed. One thing that we do, just another tip for those that are looking to get involved, whenever I'm in a team time trial, we have like a set speed we want to hold. Yes, if you focus on speed, you can kind of get out of control a little bit if you don't know your efforts and know how to have a good solid line, how to make sure that you get the right place, hold the wheel, don't overlap wheels, don't make people waste energy. Once you get that down though, we try and aim at a very specific speed to stay really consistent. After enough practice, you start to know. In the AAA pluses, we're right around 49 to 51 is where we're at. And if we come under 50, we're like, all right, now we got to press the envelope. But if we're going way over that, we know, oh, how long can we go here? If we're going way under that, we might not be in contention today. So every category kind of has its speed limiters, and you try and use the energy that you have in order to get where you need, in order to get that most speed out. Once you've gotten that straight line TTT pack dynamic down, though, it's kind of like a step-by-step process of practice.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'd like to say, not just thanking Martin Carew, but how about all the team captains out there, Nathan, the folks that help organize their own individual team's effort here in the ZRL. There's a lot of work and passion that goes into that. So big thank you. You don't get to the tens of thousands of racers that we have without a bunch of heroes out there doing that work to help build up the foundation. So big thank you. It looks like a great start. A lot of racing to go. For folks maybe, Nathan, that aren't familiar with the ZRL and how the pattern is laid out, there's racing all day long at all the different levels. When you look at ZRL, I can't even keep track of how many time zones that we race in now, but it's truly a global phenomenon when you look at ZRL. So great job, Martin.
All right, let's take a quick look at the results. We are waiting for a couple of the results to still come in. But we're going to need to keep on moving here. So we're going to go with our top 8 at this point. It's going to be Zed Sunderpants here coming on through. Dave at the top with a solid time of 29:16.
Yeah, and you're going to see that they score 16 points for that. So 29:16, really quick, but Deepak Elite was right there, Nathan. Second place, only 6 seconds back. And what's important is it's a linear point structure, so only 1 point down. Sisu Racing. This is why we have to get this right. Help me out where I go wrong. Makotka, another one of the Sisu teams, had a great interview with Matt Jansen on the Zwift cast that I'd recommend folks go back and listen to. Sisu in at third. Belgian Zwift riders, the Eagles 3 for fourth today. Mutant Y in fifth, BL13 ZZP Rockets in sixth, Outboard seventh, ABR Cycling Team in eighth. And we're going to hold on No Pins R3R and Velociraptors, but you can always go to WTRL.racing to find out more about what's happening with this race or any of the hundreds of team time trials that are going on today for our racers.
That's a great shout out as we wrap up out here today. Zwift Racing League, you can join at any time. It's open all season. You got to find a team that's currently registered, but you can still get involved. Next race is going to be on September 17th. The points race on Sugar Cookie Dave, that course. Oh man, that's a good one. Use the whole coast and then they kick up toward Watopia Mountain across the cliffside and back on down for a solid finish into the jungle. So Sugar Cookie, it's a great one next week. Points race. There's going to be a lot of new sections of points competition that we've never seen before, actually, on this race. So definitely a one to check out next week. Get on a team, get involved. Now, if you had a little bit of a struggle in the team time trial out there today, well, every Thursday, home to the world famous weekly WTRL Team Time Trial takes place every single Thursday in partnership with Zwift. You can find pretty much all day long. There are divisions that are going out all day long that you can jump into a team and on the weekly basis. There's no series to it, so there's no closing of registration other than the day before. You got to have a team registered. So, Dave, we've covered Team Time Trials for, I think, almost 2 years, actually. One of the best team events there is out on Zwift.
It's where it all begins, and it truly is. I mean, when you talk about community, which is one of the cornerstones of Zwift, well, community is what WTRL is all about. The accountability, the amount of fun. How many long-standing jokes, Nathan, go back to WTRL? I was just looking at Monalee's result the other day, and I saw that cookie, and that reminded me, well, that's the good old WTRL thing. That's for sure. So many great memories. And yeah, you want to get better at something, you've got to engage it full on.
100%. And, the reality is, I think a lot of people with this first TTT, they'll be looking toward race number 4 in the ZRL for this round number 1, thinking, okay, how did that go? Where did we go well? Where can we improve? If it was a total bombshell for the team, okay, how do we improve? Let's go do some Thursday TTTs, right? That's going to be the best way to get that. And you almost kind of get into this routine once you get into the ZRL season where you try and find those places where you can practice throughout the week so that you're ready and ready to go and really sharpened up for those Tuesdays. The Thursdays can do that for TTTs, and then you find somewhere to get your sprints and points and scratch racing into practice for as well. Just becomes this awesome routine as we hit into the season.
Yeah, there's only 10 million races a day on Zwift. You shouldn't have too much trouble finding one, I wouldn't think. You're never more than 1 minute away from another race start.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we'll be back for that points race on Sugar Cookie next week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in here on Zwift Live. Definitely go and sign up over at WTRL.race and be on the watch out for the Zwift World Series streams as well. They're all scheduled here on the Zwift Live channel, so you can go ahead and hit your notification buttons for those. But we will see you next week. Sugar Cookie, round 1, race number 2, points race for the ZRL. From Dave and I, as always, ride on.